10 minutes. Not to scroll your feed, not to grab a coffee. To charge a car that goes 745 miles. While Tesla built an empire, Toyota was doing something else entirely. Waiting. Not because they were slow, because they were hunting something bigger. A battery with no liquid, no fire risk, no range anxiety, and a lifespan that could outlast the car around it. Solid state. And Toyota claims they've cracked it. If they're right, the EV world doesn't evolve, it restarts. And if they're wrong, one of the largest automakers on Earth will have gambled its entire reputation on a battery engineers have been chasing for 2 decades and failing. There is no middle ground here. This is a bet with no hedge. Tesla built an empire on lithium-ion. Their best, the 4680 cell, delivers around 340 real-world miles and charges in 25 to 30 minutes. That's the current ceiling. Toyota isn't trying to raise it, they're trying to demolish it. Toyota didn't hold a flashy launch event. They made a quiet, precise declaration, a technological breakthrough in solid-state batteries. Durability issues, the ones that killed every previous attempt at commercializing this technology, solved. Target range, 1,200 kilometers, 745 miles, New York to Chicago without stopping. Charge time from 10 to 80%, 10 minutes. Longevity, a battery designed to outlast ownership cycles, potentially lasting decades. These aren't incremental improvements. This is a different category. And the question the entire industry is now sitting with is simple. Can Toyota actually deliver? But before we answer that, you need to understand who Toyota actually is. Not the brand, the institution. This is a company that spent decades being called too cautious, too slow, too married to the combustion engine, while Tesla rewrote the rules. The media wrote them off, investors ignored them, and while everyone was busy crowning the new king, Toyota was in the lab, quietly, methodically, building the weapon that the new king never saw coming. Over 1,000 patents in solid-state technology, more than any other automaker on Earth. That's not a company that was sleeping, that's a company that was hunting. Here's the core swap, liquid to solid. In every lithium-ion battery on the road today, ions move through a liquid electrolyte between the anode and cathode. It works, but that liquid is flammable, it limits charging speed, it degrades, and it sets a hard ceiling on energy density. Think of it like a river. Ions swim across, current flows, the car moves. But the river can flood, it can freeze, and it can catch fire. Toyota is replacing that river with a highway. Dense, controlled, and impossible to burn. Solid state replaces that liquid with an engineered solid material. Toyota has focused specifically on sulfide-based solid electrolytes, materials chosen not just for performance, but for manufacturability. They're softer, more adhesive, and less brittle than ceramic alternatives. That last part matters more than it sounds. When the liquid disappears, something remarkable becomes possible, a lithium metal anode. That's where energy density stops being incremental and starts being transformational. Tesla's 4680 cells are estimated at 244 to 268 watt-hours per kilogram. Toyota solid-state prototypes are targeting nearly double that. Same weight, twice the energy. That's why 745 miles doesn't require a battery that weighs twice as much. Charging speed follows the same logic. The solid structure can handle a dramatically higher flow of electricity without the overheating risk that forces today's fast chargers to throttle back. No liquid means no thermal runaway risk at the electrolyte level. This is how 10 minutes becomes physically plausible. Safety is the quieter headline, but possibly the most important one. Remove the flammable liquid and you remove the primary fire risk at the source. Solid electrolytes are far more thermally stable. That also means less weight dedicated to thermal management systems, which loops back into range. And longevity. Every charge cycle in a lithium-ion battery puts mechanical stress on the cell. Layers expand and contract. Interfaces wear. Toyota's claim is that a well-bonded solid electrolyte, one that stays in tight contact cycle after cycle, can dramatically slow that degradation. Executives have spoken about lifespans measured in decades, not warranty periods. But this isn't just a chemistry story, it's a geopolitical one. For a decade, Japan watched China and South Korea absorb the battery industry that Japan helped invent. CATL alone now controls roughly 37% of global battery supply. Japan's answer isn't a subsidy program or a trade complaint, it's Toyota. The Japanese government has placed this program under National Economic Security Policy, the same classification reserved for semiconductors and rare earth supply chains. That's not bureaucratic language. That's a country deciding whoever controls the next battery chemistry controls the next era of manufacturing, and Japan has decided it will not watch that era belong to someone else. The implications stretch well beyond passenger cars. If solid state reaches scale, the entire cost structure of EV manufacturing shifts. Battery packs currently represent 30 to 40% of a vehicle's total cost. A chemistry that delivers double the energy density at competitive production costs doesn't just make better cars, it makes the economics of electric trucks, electric buses, and grid storage suddenly viable in markets where lithium-ion never quite closed the argument. The technology that started as a solution to a charging station frustration becomes the infrastructure decision of the next 20 years. On paper, it's a clean sweep across every weakness lithium-ion has. But batteries don't live on paper, and this is where every previous solid-state program died. Not in a boardroom, not in a press release, under a microscope. Solid-state has been the almost technology for years. Smart engineers at well-funded companies have chased it and come back with the same problems. The first enemy is cracking. Many solid electrolytes behave like glass under stress. Repeated expansion and contraction during charging creates microscopic fractures. A fracture isn't cosmetic, it's a path for failure that widens every cycle. The second is dendrites. During charging, lithium can grow needle-like crystalline structures that push through the electrolyte cell by cell. Think of them as microscopic saboteurs, invisible, patient, and lethal. One reaching the opposite electrode and you get a short circuit, heat, in worst cases, fire, the exact outcome this chemistry was supposed to prevent. The third enemy is the hardest one, manufacturing. A battery that performs in a lab pouch cell is a science project. A battery you can produce by the millions, identically, reliably, at a price that eventually reaches a mainstream car buyer, that's a war. Every delay Toyota has experienced hasn't been about the chemistry failing in a lab, it's been about the brutal gap between proof of concept and industrial scale. Toyota's claimed breakthrough is specifically about the electrolyte's flexibility and adhesion, a material that doesn't crack under mechanical stress, that moves with the cell instead of against it, that maintains contact across thousands of cycles. That's not a marketing claim, that's the specific engineering problem that has ended every previous solid-state program, and Toyota says they've solved it. If you want to stay ahead as this race reaches its final laps, subscribe to the channel now, because the next part is where Toyota stops making promises and starts showing receipts. Press releases are cheap, factory commitments are not. Two partnerships sit at the center of Toyota's strategy, and they tell you more about the company's confidence than any announcement ever could. First, Sumitomo Metal Mining, Toyota's cathode material partner. Sumitomo is engineering cathodes built to survive punishment, cycle after cycle, without the gradual self-destruction that limits today's batteries. They've publicly targeted mass production around Japan's fiscal year 2028. Toyota is the priority customer. Not eventually, not if things go well. First in line. Second, Idemitsu Kosan. This is the supply chain play. Idemitsu is working with Toyota specifically on mass production methods for solid electrolytes. They've announced plans to scale up lithium sulfide, the key ingredient in Toyota's chosen sulfide-based chemistry. That's an industrial commitment, not a research partnership. Put these together, and the picture is clear. Toyota isn't waiting until launch day to solve its supply chain. It's locking in the hardest materials now, before the spotlight turns on and demand spikes. There's a national layer underneath all of this too. The Japanese government has officially certified Toyota's next-generation battery development through the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry. Japan watched China and South Korea dominate battery manufacturing for years. This is a deliberate strategic move to reclaim ground. Toyota is the spear tip. This is the picture underneath the headline, not a lab breakthrough waiting for a factory being built around a breakthrough, and that distinction is what every competitor should be losing sleep over. Toyota's solid-state plan doesn't exist in isolation. It sits on top of a broader battery strategy that reveals how calculated this whole play is. Before the full solid-state leap, Toyota has laid out a sequence of intermediate steps: cost-focused lithium iron phosphate options, higher-performance lithium-ion chemistries,
incremental improvements designed to build EV manufacturing proficiency and supply chain depth while solid-state matures in the background. Learn while you earn. Build the factory muscles now so that when solid-state is ready, you can scale it fast. But the competition isn't standing still, and the window is narrowing by the quarter. Mercedes-Benz has shown real-world solid-state prototype testing. Nissan claims a pilot production line targeting the late 2020s. Honda is moving quietly but seriously. And then there's China, where CATL and BYD treat solid-state less like a moonshot and more like a scheduling problem, both pointing toward mass production windows around 2030. Every boardroom on Earth is asking the same question right now: are we already too late? Toyota's credibility problem is real. Early solid-state targets came and went. Each new announcement trained the audience to be skeptical. The reflex is understandable, but what's different now is the industrial evidence: government certification, material partners with public production commitments, a supply chain being assembled before the demand arrives. This looks less like optimism and more like preparation. The first vehicles will almost certainly be premium Lexus models, proof of concept at the high end before costs allow broader deployment. Widespread mainstream adoption probably doesn't arrive until 2030 or beyond. That's the realistic timeline, not the headline one. Let's imagine Toyota hits the window. By late this decade, solid-state vehicles start rolling in real numbers. Range anxiety doesn't shrink, it ends. When 700+ miles is standard, nobody's calculating charger locations mid-trip. Charging stops become genuinely unremarkable. 10 minutes, same as gas, no mental overhead. The ripple effects go beyond passenger cars. Electric trucking economics flip when range and charge times stop being the primary objections. Grid storage applications become more viable with batteries that last decades. This isn't incremental EV progress. If solid-state delivers at scale, it's the moment the technology stops being a considered choice and becomes the obvious one, the iPhone moment for electric vehicles. Not better than what came before, different enough that what came before feels obsolete. Tesla's advantage, the manufacturing scale, the charging network, the brand trust built over a decade, doesn't vanish, but the technological foundation shifts underneath it, and companies that built empires on lithium-ion have to decide whether to adapt fast enough or defend ground that keeps shrinking. The next few years don't just decide who wins the EV market, they decide what the EV market actually is. Watch the pilot lines, watch early production vehicles, watch real-world testing data, not press conference slides, because solid-state batteries aren't magic, and Toyota's history gives skeptics plenty of ammunition. But for the first time, the pieces are actually on the board. The question isn't whether solid-state is coming, it's who holds the keys when it arrives. Every range number, every charging network, every resale value, every assumption you have about a long drive looks like rebuilds itself the moment that battery reaches scale. You're watching that moment build in real time. Subscribe to the channel, because when the first real production data surfaces, we'll be the ones running the numbers. The future of driving doesn't get announced, it gets proven, and the proof is coming faster than anyone expected.